episode 465 of 360 Wrestling Fanatic, unfortunately, is not live on Saturday night, but Sunday morning, and going to be talking about last night's WWE Summerslam, who survived between the American Nightmare and the Beast Incarnate, who won as two former friends battled in an MMA rules match, who walked out to triple threat as the WWE Women's Champion, also who left SummerSlam as the World Heavyweight Champion and the undisputed Universal Champion, as there was a big shock last night in the main event. Also, we'll be talking about last night's episode of AEW Saturday Collision, featuring CM Punk vs. Absolute Ricky Starks, with the legendary Ricky the Dragon Steamboat as the special referee. All that and much more right here, right now. 360 Wrestling Fanatic. And hello, Wrestling Fanatics. Welcome to this episode of 360 Wrestling Fanatic, episode 465. Hope everyone had a great Saturday night last night with all the pro wrestling going on. We'll be talking about WWE SummerSlam and AEW Saturday Collision right now, but unfortunately, like I said in that little preview opener there, I am very disappointed in myself. I messed up big last night, and I was about halfway through watching Collision last night after SummerSlam, and then after I finished the SummerSlam press conference, I made a mistake and I didn't fast forward through one of the commercials on the recording. So what happened was I ended up falling asleep during the commercial, and that is why there was no live episode last night like there normally has been lately on nights of premium live events. So unfortunately, I'm doing 360 Wrestling Fanatic right now on this Sunday morning. I should have been doing the live episode last night. I want to say it was for sure after 1 sometime last night. I could have been close to 2, I don't remember. But whenever I finally, like I said, started Collision and then about halfway fell asleep, then had to finish it this morning and then start the podcast now. And let's get into it without any further ado. Last night, WWE Superstar, WWE Summerslam Premium Live event. I don't know why I said Superstar. If I actually knew how to edit a podcast, I would probably have cut that part out. But let's just start over, rewind. And I know people are probably thinking, if you don't even know how to do a podcast, then why are you doing one? Now, let's just start over. Last night, WWE SummerSlam live right here in Detroit, Michigan. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to go, but at Ford Field, to skip ahead a little bit, they announced the attendance as 59,194. Not sure if that is the legit number just yet, but I wouldn't be too surprised if it is. It doesn't seem like one of those ones that's too exaggerated like WWE has before. And our commentators tonight, Michael Cole and Corey Graves. And before I get into last night's SummerSlam card, it was announced yesterday that there's going to be a little switch up to the commentary teams. I'm guessing starting tomorrow on Monday nights. Monday Night Raw will now be Michael Cole and Wade Barrett switching over from Friday Night SmackDown. And SmackDown will now be a 3-man booth with Michael Cole, Kevin Patrick, and Corey Graves. Not too sure why they're making this switch or having a 3-man team on SmackDown, unless maybe they're not too confident in Kevin Patrick as being the main play-by-play guy. I'm not sure, which I'm guessing that will be probably Michael Cole's role on SmackDown now with the 3-man team. But I don't know. I'm going to say I'm a real big fan of this decision, but it doesn't bother me too badly either. And now let's get into SummerSlam. Had the opening video, which was narrated by Kid Rock. I thought it was done pretty well. And our first match of the night, we start things off with Logan Paul and Ricochet. This one I thought was a good match, and now that I think about it, was probably the best choice to open the show. It got the crowd pretty into it right off the bat, and Logan Paul did look pretty well. There were some pretty good high spots in this one, and Logan Paul ends up actually getting the win here. At one point, he had help from one of his buddies who's usually there with him come out, hand him a pair of brass knucks, and it Ricochet 17 minutes 32 seconds. I'd have to give this one 3 out of 5 ring bells. Pretty good match. I don't know if I would say anything real spectacular or anything that'll go viral, as they say. Not like the spot they had in the Royal Rumble earlier this year, but maybe that's just me though. And our second match of the night on this SummerSlam PLE, which I was surprised to see this one on as early as it was. The American Nightmare Cody Rhodes taking on the Beast Incarnate Brock Lesnar, which most of the match Lesnar dominated, and we do see Cody get a Kimura of his own locked in and hit 3 crossroads to pin Brock Lesnar at 17 minutes 30 seconds. Pretty good match, I thought. I wouldn't say I thought it was anything real great, but it was definitely a good match. I'd say 2.5 out of 5 ring bells. And next up is our Slim Jim Battle Royal. The entrances we actually get to see on the PLE, because when we get back to Ford Field, most of the superstars are already in the ring, and then we see The Miz, LA Knight, the phenomenal AJ Styles, and there is a last minute entry into the Slim Jim Battle Royal. All of a sudden we hear MVP, and he says there is one more in the match, and it is Omos, which when it starts, Omos is dominating, being the giant in the ring, gets a bunch of eliminations, and then finally they did the classic big man spot in the Royal Rumble, and everybody eliminated Omos. And the final 3, to skip ahead a little bit, LA Knight, AJ Styles, and Sheamus. And Karrion Kross, who was eliminated, gets involved to eliminate AJ Styles, and he tells them that it's not over between them. And now down to LA Knight and Sheamus, and they keep going. Knight eliminates Sheamus to win the first ever Slim Jim Battle Royal. And LA Knight, who is over huge, got a big pop from the crowd. And not bad here. I'd have to say maybe 2.5 out of 5 ring bells for the Slim Jim Battle Royal. And next up, we have the MMA rules match, Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler, which I've said on the podcast before, I wasn't really too crazy about the whole MMA rules thing, but I thought this was a pretty good match. Kinda kept short, not too long, 7 minutes, 23 seconds, but it is Shayna Baszler getting the win, choking out her former friend Ronda Rousey. And like I said on Raw Monday, those 2 video packages that they showed really got me into this match, wanting to see it. And I was hoping that Baszler would have went over and got the win in this one, and she did. So I wonder now, though, what's next for Ronda Rousey in WWE. We'll just have to wait and see. 7 minutes, 23 seconds. And this one, though, it was a pretty good match, but I think I'd have to say 2 out of 5 ring bells. And at this time, the attendance is announced as 59,194. Like I said at the top of the podcast, I'm not too sure just yet if this is the legit attendance number or not. I haven't checked yet. We'll have to check WrestleTix on Twitter to see if that actually is the legit of number of people that were there at Ford Field last night. Next up, the WWE Intercontinental Championship is on the line. Drew McIntyre challenging Gunther, and I thought this one was a good match, but I don't think it was as good as their match last year at Clash at the Castle. Maybe it's just me, but it wasn't quite the same as that one. Good match though, and Gunther defeats McIntyre with a splash, then a lariat and a powerbomb at 13 minutes 43 seconds to retain the IC title. And this one I'd have to say maybe 3 out of 5 ring bells. Once again, good match, but I was kind of maybe expecting more coming off of their match last year. They had at Clash of the Castle. That one was such a really good match, because at the time, that one I wasn't really expecting it to be quite as good as it was, and it was better than I thought it would be. But so going into this match, I expected it to be maybe just like the Clash at the Castle match, but I don't think that it quite lived up to that though. But still, definitely not a bad match at all. And next up is our World Heavyweight Championship match. Seth freaking Rollins taking on Finn Balor. And this one, good match here. Balor came out with 7 painted on his chest for the 7 years. And I thought this was good, of course. Judgment Day did end up getting involved. Senior Money in the Bank, Damian Priest, Dirty Dom, Dominic Mysterio, and Rhea Ripley. Which at one point there, the commentators, Cole and Graves, were kind of making it seem like there was some confusion with Priest giving Finn Balor the Money in the Bank briefcase, and then they kind of made it sound like wasn't sure if Damian Priest was just giving it to him to actually help Balor win the match, or if he was trying to set up to end up cashing in the briefcase. So that distracted Balor, and Rollins got the advantage in this one. And Priest looks upset. He puts the Money in the Bank briefcase in the ring and then walks around to the other side, and Balor goes to pick it up, but then Seth Rollins hits Balor with the stomp into the briefcase to get the win to retain the World Heavyweight Championship. And at this time, Finn Balor is staring down Damian Priest at ringside, and Dominic and Rhea are on the floor as Rollins leaves with the World Heavyweight Championship. For this one, they're teasing problems again with the Judgment Day. Balor and Priest anyway. So have to see what happens on Raw Monday between these two. And next up is the triple threat match for the WWE Women's Championship. And we have the the WWE Women's Champion Asuka defending against Charlotte Flair and Bianca Belair. I thought this one was a really good match, and at one point it looked like Bianca Belair injured her knee, was going to be taken out of the match. The referee started to walk her up the aisle, but she came back, and I thought the finish of this one was done pretty well. Charlotte Flair has Bianca Belair about to set up the figure 8, but then at that time Asuka gets in the ring and sprays the mist into the face of Charlotte Flair, blinding her, and then she goes to go after Bianca Belair, but then Belair is able to roll her up to get the pin and the win and become the new WWE Women's Champion at 20 minutes 47 seconds. I thought the finish of this one was, they did a good job of that, and good match. I'd have to say 3.5 out of 5 ring bells. Once again, we have Bianca Belair as the WWE Women's Champion. And now it is time for our main event of SummerSlam. Tribal combat for the undisputed Universal Championship. Roman Reigns versus Jey Uso. Of course, Roman Reigns has the wise man Paul Heyman in his corner, and starts off with Roman dominating, and then Jey does get some offense of his own in. They brawl through the crowd, and they go to a table that is set up, and then we see Solo Sikoa get involved, attack his brother Jey, and put him through the table, and they eventually do get back into the ring, and looks like Jey is in control and possibly going to become the new Universal Champion. But then at this time, somebody comes through the crowd wearing a hoodie and a bandana and pulls Jey Uso out of the ring. And then when they take the hood off, the bandana off, it is none other than Jimmy Uso, the brother of Jey. And they gave it some time for Jey Uso to look shocked here. And then Jimmy super kicks him, rolls him back into the ring, and Roman Reigns gets the pin and the win to retain the undisputed Universal Championship at 35 minutes 36 seconds. So good match here. I'd have to say 4 out of 5 ring bells. And Roman Reigns at the end sells it like he did not know what Jimmy was gonna do here. And it'll be interesting to see what happens next on SmackDown. I'm guessing lead to a singles match at Payback between Jimmy and Jey. Or that's what you would think anyway, since that is the right name of a show to have this match on, if you're going to, of course, Payback. So we could possibly see that on the show, and maybe even just have that, and maybe not even have a Universal title match. But we will just have to wait and see what happens next. Jimmy Uso turning on his brother Jay, costing him the Undisputed Universal Championship against their cousin Roman. And so overall, that was SummerSlam. I thought it was a pretty good premium live event last night. I'd have to say maybe 8.5 out of 10 ring bells overall. A really good card, I thought. Fun show to watch. And now let's go over to TNT for AEW Saturday Collision, because Saturday night's all right for fighting, even though I only saw about half the show last night and then had to finish it this morning. Once again, that's why there was, unfortunately, no live episode of 360 Wrestling Fanatic last night. And let's get into it. First, we start things off. Collision live from Greenville, South Carolina. Our commentators tonight, again, Ian Riccaboni and Nigel McGuinness. And we have first at a match for the AEW World Tag Team Championships, FTR defending against Big Bill and Brian Cage with Prince Nana in their corner. I thought this was a pretty good tag team match, actually. Better than I thought it was going to be. I'd have to say FTR really brought a good match out of Big Bill and Cage. I'd have to say 2.5 out of 5 ring bells for this one. And then after the match, FTR got on the mic and they put out a challenge to the Young Bucks for All in London. So I'm guessing the Young Bucks will accept, and we will see that match at All in London, especially since the Young Bucks have been talking as of late about how they want to get back into the tag team division. And the AEW TBS Championship is on the line. Chris Statlander defending against Mercedes Martinez. Pretty good match, I thought here. I'd say 2.5 out of 5 ring bells. And Chris Statlander gets the win to successfully defend her TBS championship against Mercedes Martinez. But then after the match, Diamante comes to the ring and surprisingly attacks Chris Statlander. And it's a 2-on-1 attack with her and Mercedes Martinez on Chris Statlander. And then at this time, it is Willow Nightingale coming to the ring to make the save for Statlander, which I wouldn't be surprised if we see a tag team match between these four sometime in the future. And next up, the Ring of Honor World Television Champion Samoa Joe defeats Serpentico. And the AEW Trios Champions House of Black, Malachi Black, Brody King, and Buddy Matthews with Julia Hart in their corner defeat the team of Lee Johnson, Darius Martin, and Action Andretti in a trios match, which was a house rules match, but I noticed for this one, they didn't do the lighting like they used to have for the house rules match. And next, Switchblade Jay White defeated Metalik. And in the main event for the Real World Championship, CM Punk defeats Absolute Ricky Starks with Ricky the Dragon Steamboat as a special referee. And I might get into this match more when I have maybe on a better episode of 360 Wrestling Fanatic, which, like I said, I was a little disappointed that I didn't do this live last night. So overall, both Summerslam and AEW Saturday Collision, I thought, good night of pro wrestling. And that's all for this episode of 360 Wrestling Fanatic, episode 465. Hope everyone enjoyed both SummerSlam and Collision last night. If you have any comments or questions, you can leave your feedback from SummerSlam and Collision last night, especially if anyone is here in the Michigan area and you went to SummerSlam last night. Give your feedback from the live experience there at Ford Field in the comment section, either here on Spreaker, YouTube, or whichever podcast website or app you listen to 360 Wrestling Podcasts on. And that's all for this episode. I'll be back in just a little bit for the Sunday episode of Good Morning Wrestling Fans. I know the schedule is a little bit off than normal, but unfortunately, like I said, I messed up last night. And hope to have a new episode of 360 Wrestling Fanatic tomorrow night after Raw with the fallout from SummerSlam. And like I said, we'll be back in just a little bit for Good Morning Wrestling Fans. But until then, I am Lance, and I am a wrestling fanatic.